Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third joint webinar with MCM, and I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Tom McMahon along with us, who's going to give us some amazing insider PPC knowledge. And this is where we're going to be working together on this one. These two dark horses of SEO and PPC. We're going to see, and we're going to really chat through today how these can potentially work together and work together very smartly and very well, and hopefully give some ideas as to with your events, how these can help you get visitors, sponsors, exhibitors, and sign-ups throughout the year, not just up in the lead up to the event. And very much of this is going how we can fit both PPC and SEO around the whole event cycle and when to apply what. So hope we've got some great insights to share with you today. So just very briefly on the PPC side, Tom's obviously going to be chatting through about getting instant visibility, and I'll let him talk through his section. And very much on the SEO side, we'll be talking through kind of the, I guess, the year-round game, which is very much what SEO brings. But at this stage, if I'd like to, I'll hand over to Tom. Just very briefly, if you have questions, please pop those into the chat. Katie's very kindly going to be helping out with questions, and we'll be firing those over to us. There's very much going to be a question section at the end, which both of us will be answering those questions. But if you have stuff along the way, please ask those, because sometimes it could be better to answer those during the actual session itself. So I'll just hand over to Tom.
Thank you very much, John, and good afternoon, everyone. John, I feel like it's kind of sad that we're coming to the end of this series. It's been good fun, so we'll have to find something else to do going forwards. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then, John, you're going to have to let me know if that's worked with the update. It should be sharing now.
Yep, that looks to be shared.
Lovely.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Cool. Okay, so afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom from MCM. So I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to who we are at MCM. So we're an events specialist digital marketing agency. And what we boil that down to is we get bums on seats. So as John mentioned, the focus for this afternoon from my side of things is going to be very much talking about the world of PPC, how it can tie into the world of SEO. And then in the second half, I've put in some kind of best practice bits and some updates, just as some kind of useful takeaways to take from this. So please drop any questions into the chat. Very happy to go through any of those at the end. So SEO versus PPC, what works and when? So when should you be applying the different bits? But let's start off up front with the difference between the two. So for anyone that doesn't know, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimisation and PPC stands for pay-per-click. I always kind of give these definitions because I remember many years ago spoke about SEO for about 45 minutes, and the first question at the end was, that was great, but what does SEO stand for? So that's never left me. So I always like to share the definitions, and hopefully my presentations maybe have got a little bit better since then. So SEO, the main difference that I would say when we're looking at event marketing and getting those bums on seats is that within SEO, you can only really communicate with audiences when they're actively searching for something or they're actively looking for an event similar to yours. That's when you can really get in front of people and drive a lot of traffic onto your site. And then the other really important part of SEO is converting audiences as effectively as possible. On the PPC side, you can be a lot more aggressive with how you're communicating with audiences. So basically, you can communicate with them wherever and whenever. So, on the SEO side, it might be when they're searching for the best AI event, and then you could have your results popping up there. Whereas with PPC, you could be putting ads in front of someone when they're flicking through Instagram stories or when they're kind of scrolling on TikTok. And so you can be quite a lot more aggressive there. And via all the targeting options, you can drive really high quality traffic. So, as I said, that with those paid ads, you can really target anyone anywhere at any time. And you've got such a wide variety of options in terms of targeting to make sure that you're getting the right seniority, the right company lists, etc. So if we were to call out some of the superpowers, again, I was trying to think of SEO versus PPC as if they're in the ring battling it out. In reality, it's not like that. They're a great team when working together, but I was trying to think what are the things that stand out from the PPC side of things. So the first one being the ability to get in front of hard to reach audiences. So let's say if you're looking to get a certain seniority to attend your event and you're looking for those people to come from a certain company with a certain buying power, with a certain interest in a particular demographic or region, that's where PPC can really come into its own. Competitor targeting, again, you can be quite aggressive in terms of going after or competing against other competitors in similar events. Going after new audiences, I would argue that this is probably the most important and useful part of within kind of a PPC campaign. Who are the audiences that don't know about your event? They don't know that they want to attend. They don't know that you've got all of these brilliant speakers and all of these fantastic opportunities. That's where a PPC campaign can put the right ads in front of the right people at the right time. And there's something that we're seeing and doing a lot more of in the past few years, driving exhibitor leads. So we all know how tricky it is to get people to exhibit at events, and particularly finding those new exhibitors, the ones that are of really high quality and the ones that are going to come back year on year and be a really interesting part of your event production. They're really hard to find, whereas there are lots of exciting ways that you can run campaigns within the platforms to get in front of those people and generate those leads. John, as always, please jump in if you've got any questions or if you want to dispute any of the bits that I've said.
Will do, thank you.
So here I put together some thinking around how to build a really solid PPC campaign. So as I say time and time again, we always focus on the funnel. So looking at the awareness, consideration and conversion phases and working out which platforms we want to use at each phase and how we're going to tailor the messaging. So we're speaking to people differently 2 months out to a month out to a week out. Again, tailoring the creative. And there's a real different mix of other platforms that you can use as you go through. I think this slide is probably the most interesting one for the topic of conversation for today. So I've covered off some of the exciting bits around PPC there. It's all well and good that you can go after anyone that you like at any time and put the ads in front of them, but it costs money and it's expensive. And it's not something you want to be doing all year round. It doesn't matter kind of what budget that you've got. It's going to be really challenging to keep activity running and keep getting in front of people. And that's where the world of SEO comes in. And that's the bits that John's going to talk about a little bit later on in today's session. But those are the things that can run all year and that can build your growth year on year and kind of make it bigger and stronger. All of the exciting content that can go in there. And again, organic social can run all year. So this timeline, the 3 white boxes along the bottom, that's showing the activity that should be happening constantly and that can build continual good quality growth. Whereas for PPC, what we see works really well is running a targeted campaign for 8 to 12 weeks. This can be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter based on various objectives and different industries, but that's kind of the average. So that's brilliant to switch on here and you can have all the exciting stuff, but it's so important that all of this other cool stuff is happening throughout the year and that these bits, the SEO content, organic, social, don't just switch on in line with the PPC activity, because then, as you can imagine, this is meant to sit on top as the cherry on the cake to give that extra boost, push you all the way through. If these foundational bits aren't here, that budget has to work so much harder and it's ultimately going to be a lot more expensive to get the same results.
Can I just ask you quickly on that, Tom? So does it genuinely have an impact if you haven't worked on organic social and you haven't worked on the SEO of your website in terms of the PPC performance?
Yeah, great question. And yes, huge impact. I'd say the costs could almost double if the health of your website isn't strong, if the conversion journey once you're there, if the ease of finding the site, all of these SEO principles, if they're not in place, the what you're getting for every penny that you're spending is going to be nowhere near as effective as it could be. So on the flip, if you've been running a brilliant SEO strategy for a year, again, doesn't need to be a huge amount of work, but just a really kind of smart content approach and getting all of the technical bits in order. When you then put that PPC activity on top, you could effectively get double the results from your investment, if not more. It really is that cherry on the top. These bits down here, they're the foundation. That's the pillar of the house. And then this is, it's only, the stronger the foundation, the stronger the activity that sits on top is going to be.
Wow.
And I think as we get into the world of AI and search results and people using ChatGPT, etc., more and more, these ones along the bottom are going to become far more important. And then PPC is really going to be for the hard to reach audiences and the tricky extra bits on top, the growth bits, etc. And then those are going to be looking after your audiences, looking after the traffic, so that you don't effectively then just go and have to pay for them.
Just very quickly, I presume you're still seeing PPC working very effectively despite all of the noise around AI at the moment. So I presume there's still an awful lot of traffic coming via paid channels.
Yeah, 100%. We haven't seen any drop off at all, and I've got it on a slide later on. I imagine as soon as we do start to see it slightly, that is when ChatGPT will be launching their paid ads. So I don't see paid ads there anyway. It's just a different person will be charging for them. So there were some leaks about a month ago from OpenAI that heavily referenced their plans to introduce different paid for models that would have free models that would include ads. So yeah, I don't expect the paid world to be affected at all, because that's where the advertisers make their money, really. So yeah, although it will always shift between them, who's charging for it and who's
Fantastic.
So then moving into the kind of how you should be structuring your campaigns before people are landing on site. So if we're thinking about that example beforehand, so you've got all of this brilliant SEO content and you've been running that all year, and then you switch on your PPC campaign to supercharge all of your efforts and effectively make everything that you've been building and doing louder and reach more people. The best way to structure that campaign, as mentioned, is have an awareness phase, consideration, conversion, within that PPC or paid social strategy as you're running through, so that when people are landing on the site, they're primed and ready to convert. You don't just want to be shoving traffic over without giving people lots of information around who's going to be at the event, reasons to attend, networking opportunities. Is there a free bar? Is there drinks? Is there all of those other exciting bits that are going on, how people get in there, etc. All of these bits can be really useful to drop into the campaign to then make sure that when they land, they're going to convert, because you're not going to get many chances to place them on the site. So you may as well make sure that when they are, they're primed and ready to go. And here I wanted to share some of the platforms available. So although I'm sure everyone knows what all of these platforms are, or most of them, it's easy when we think about PPC to just think of running some ads on Google, whereas this is all of the options that are available. I really encourage everyone, when building a campaign, to look at the audience and work out which platforms are they using and which new ones you should be bringing in. And it's really important not to get stuck on, whatever platform. I was going to say X platform, but that's a bit confusing because one of the platforms is now called X, but whatever platform has worked well year on year, I wouldn't always rely on that working again in the same way this year and the following year. It's always good to try different ones and bring different ones in. So if we look at the left, you've got Google, Meta, which encompasses Facebook and Instagram, and LinkedIn. I guess kind of your standard ones that we still see working brilliantly well. TikTok, anyone that's heard me talk about any aspects of digital marketing in the past 5 years has probably heard me drum on about TikTok and how important it is, especially in the B2B and event space. Snapchat, Reddit, Bing, Pinterest, really cool ones to explore as well, especially in the awareness space. Spotify, I've got a slide on in a second that I can chat for in a bit more detail. Acast, being able to tap into the podcast network and advertise within podcasts. That's super exciting. CTV, I'll come back to in a second as well, but that's connected TV. So that's working out how we can start putting ads on Netflix in the free version, how we can put ads on Amazon Prime and all of those bits. And X, we don't really do much on X. I'd be interested if anyone here is seeing good stuff on X at the moment. We don't see a lot of it. I don't know how long that one will be on that list unless people are seeing really cool stuff. But yeah.
Can I just quickly ask you about TikTok, Tom? How do you find clients' responses are when you speak to them about that? Because I can imagine because I certainly have a preconceived idea about TikTok, and I just wonder, do you find other people when you're chatting to them about that channel do have that it's for teenagers? Do you have that idea?
100%, John. You couldn't have got more nail on the head. I would say some weeks, 95% of the week is talking to clients and convince them around how TikTok is going to transform a lot of their advertising and do really cool stuff, and why their audience are on there. So currently there are 33 million active users per month in the UK on the platform, 33 million, and that is huge. That is the average age is increasing rapidly. The seniorities are on there. People are spending longer on TikTok than any other platform. I've got a stat that I'll get to in a second as well. It's the one that can't be missed, and it's interesting because I remember having discussions around advertising on Instagram or advertising on Facebook, and people saying, "Oh, it's just young people and it's not relevant," until it's too late and you've missed the boat and everyone's doing it. So, definitely one that if you haven't tried, it's worthwhile giving it a go.
Is it pure video content, or do you get kind of slide content on their images, or is it pure video you're looking at for that?
Yeah, there's slide image content on the platform for about the past year or so. So I'd say probably 80-90% video content, but there is the kind of slideshow style carousel bits that are on there, and it started off as short form content, but now those limitations have been relaxed and you've got slightly longer form content on TikTok as well. And
there can't be many types of businesses that have potentially more forms of video content than events, can there really?
Exactly. And the good thing about TikTok, the guidance around creative is create TikToks, not ads. It isn't a platform with really polished or designed or incredibly produced content. It's point of view stuff. So I'd always recommend, if someone's looking to create content for the platform, grab a phone, go and chat to a few people on the show floor, get someone to run around, do different bits, and just look at what other people are doing and copy it really and see how it works.
Fantastic.
Cool. And then the thing I've mentioned here as well, ChatGPT, again, we saw those leaks about a month ago. Nothing's been confirmed, nothing's official. I'd be shocked if we don't see something official soon about ads launching on ChatGPT, which from a user perspective is a bit like, it feels quite pure at the moment, where it's a platform that doesn't have it on it, but they're going to monetize it, and that's the easiest way to do it. So that's a good one to get ahead of and start thinking about. But again, the SEO is so important for ranking within those large language model AI engines. So I think it's going to be more important than ever when running ads on ChatGPT when we get there, that the SEO and the quality and the authenticity of the site is super strong. So those two fit together really nicely. So those are the bits that we're just going to chat about in terms of the world of SEO and PPC and how they can fit and how they're really important with each other. I wanted to leave everyone with a couple of kind of platform highlights that are going on in the world. I've covered off a few of them there. The first one being AI media buys. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of these from Google, so Performance Max and Demand Gen, and it's their latest Performance Max, been out for a couple of years now. Demand Gen, not quite as long, but fairly well established. And basically what you do is you plug in all of your targeting, but then the AI systems work out similar people to speak to, but also what frequency they should be speaking to them and when they should be putting the ad in front of them. So Performance Max especially will kind of save your budget and only spend it and place the ads when a user is most likely to convert and sign up to your event or buy a product, etc. Demand Gen is much better for generating demand and getting that awareness out there in a really engaging way. And both of these are heavily reliant on creative. There's a little kind of diagram here. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but it might be a handy one if anyone wants a screenshot, or we'll be sharing all of the slides afterwards. But this is a bit of a cheat sheet in terms of when to use Performance Max and Demand Gen with those Google AI-powered tools. And as always, Google was first. However, all of the other platforms jumped on it super quick. So Meta Advantage Plus has probably been fully up and running for just under a year. TikTok Smart Plus, they're not very creative in the names of these, launched just about a month ago, I think it was 2 months ago. And again, same style of media buy where the targeting uses the AI platforms, and when they run alongside traditional targeted campaigns, they can do a really nice job of filling the gaps and finding those audiences that you might not have found otherwise. So it's good to run the two together. So if anyone hasn't done those and are looking to run some campaigns, recommend giving it a go. The next is vertical video. Covered off quite a lot here already, but the most exciting thing about TikTok really is that it's cheaper than the other platforms, and it still is, and it's still almost a third of the cost of advertising Meta, and a really nice way of generating awareness to then look to convert elsewhere. YouTube Shorts as well, one that can often go overlooked, but working out to make sure that your creative has got a really good call to action, it's really clear, again, can be a really nice way of engaging people. And here is an example of a Spark ad, which is one of the slightly newer ones within TikTok's arsenal that you can run. And as you can see here, it's a bit of a richer ad, so you can go and explore a little bit more. Something like this is lovely for having a floor plan or something that you can have a flick through, or more information about speakers and things like that. So those are really cool as well. Again, just showing loads of these to just keep everyone in the know. So a few stats here. I was trying to recall a couple of these off the top of my head, but a few stats. So 30% of all online adults, 30% of adults in the UK watch short form daily. And the hours per month on TikTok is triple that than people spend on Facebook. So people spend such a copious, the people that are on TikTok spend so much time on the platform. Again, from a personal human level, not great. From an advertiser point of view, there's a lot of opportunity there. Loads of engagement, as you can imagine, from this style of content. And we've been told time and time again we've got very close partnership with LinkedIn, and we've constantly been recommended over the past few months to be creating more and more vertical content for LinkedIn, which if you haven't seen lots of that already, you definitely will be over the next few weeks and months, which to me is quite surprising as well, that we're only just getting to this world of vertical video, seeing as your phone has been vertical for I don't know how many years now, and we've always gone with this content this way, square content, and then finally we're at videos that fill in the phone, which I don't see going anywhere anytime soon. Super quick one I want to mention Spotify. It was on that list, and again, something that we don't see a lot of, but there's a lot of opportunity there. And I want to share a couple of reasons around why it's good to give it a go. Super cost effective. So I said that TikTok is far cheaper than Meta. Spotify is far cheaper than TikTok. The thing is, on Spotify, it's really, you can't track a conversion, right? No one's going to click on your ad whilst listening to it from Spotify and then go and convert and buy a ticket. But you would expect to see your awareness, your kind of brand uplift and things like that increase by running it. So yeah, those are a couple of good examples. I say that you can't click through. There are some options like display ads. So when people are kind of scrolling through in-app, there are actual display ads that you can click through for. But as you can imagine, the most popular one is the audio ads. But again, it's a good world to explore and have a little bit of a look into. A couple of the different ways to use it, but the main thing is raising that awareness to kind of support with the other bits. So I think this one, I wanted to call this out because imagine you've got this brilliant SEO strategy that you've been working on for a year, and your site is consistently coming up at the top of results when people are searching for things that are relevant, semi-relevant, whatever. And then you run a really cheap awareness campaign on Spotify that are driving people to then search things that are semi-relevant. That's when then you can start to create something that's a little bit of PPC that's pushing people, and then you're harvesting that brilliant SEO strategy. So that's just quite a nice way of doing things. And then you could look to build another more targeted PPC traditional campaign that are going after the harder to reach audiences, but could be a fun approach. And final one, CTV on Netflix. As I mentioned, this is something that we're going to be seeing much more of within the world of paid advertising, paid digital advertising in the next 6 months or so, where this can now be brought in as part of the campaign. Costs obviously always start super high with something like this, if it's super premium, but as they start to come down, this could be a really exciting way of getting in front of audiences as well. So I've rattled through the last couple of slides there to make sure we've still got lots of time. But yeah, there's a couple of ways that the two strategies can link. And then, I always just want to share some fun ideas that people can take away and hopefully think of, get other thoughts going. And if there are any questions on any of those bits, happy to chat through at the end, or anyone can always reach out.
We just had a question fire through, plus I have a question as well. So the question from the floor was, if someone has limited budget for PPC, can you still run a campaign? Is there a minimum spend we should be factoring into our event budgets?
Yes, good question. If you have minimum, what would be the minimum spend that we would recommend for a campaign? So if you're looking to raise awareness, I'd say the minimum that you'd look to spend would be probably about £1,000 to generate some awareness. From that, you're not going to get to the level where you're going to be able to drive tickets, bums on seats, and conversions. That's going to take a little bit more of a structured campaign. The minimum that we'd recommend spending to start seeing some actual kind of ticket conversions coming through, you're probably looking at £4,000, £5,000 to start running activity. However, if you want to be running awareness, probably about £1,000 budget is going to be the best starting point. And the cheapest platforms to run, I'd say that have the best blend of awareness and conversion, I would say would be Meta. If you wanted to go for a safe bet, LinkedIn's the most expensive, but that's because you can be the most granular in terms of targeting, seniority, company, etc. But Meta's, the targeting is good. It's not as good as LinkedIn, but it's a bit cheaper and it's a little bit more conversion focused than TikTok. That's super broadly speaking. However, it's always going to be dependent on your audience and where they are.
So in terms of the budget throughout the year, when would you obviously there's going to be the key time leading up for VizProm and XProm, but in terms of the awareness piece, do you see there being a sort of a drip of PPC budget throughout the year?
No, it would be great if that was the case, but we keep the entire campaigns normally in a focus burst running up to the event, so probably that 8 to 12 weeks. What would be great is if we could run an awareness activity 6 months out and a little drip feed it and then a little bit more. However, the platforms optimize against that. So every time you pause a campaign and restart it, you go back into their learning period, which basically is showing the ads to lots of different audiences and making sure that they're resonating and they're working, and it spends a chunk of your budget and you don't really see any results as it goes through that phase. So by turning campaigns on and off, you're going to waste a lot of budget. So unfortunately, the best way is switching on the campaigns right up, up fairly close to the event, 2-3 months out.
Yeah.
And then buying habits as well, people converting much closer to the event as well, so it's more expensive.
We've just had another question about is this relevant for US markets, and are there any differences? I guess the question is between UK and US in relation to what you've been talking about.
Definitely, yeah. So I'd say all of the bits in here are relevant to the US. The US actually get access to a lot of these bits earlier than the UK. So we run campaigns globally. The one thing that I would say about the US market is it is much more expensive to advertise in the US than it is in the UK. One of the best ways that we find of getting the most for your money when advertising to the US market is being really granular on the areas that you want to be targeting. So if you know that, okay, in Texas or Houston or even New York, and dialing in the locations and making sure the budget only spends in that location based on where your target audience live, that can be a nice way of doing things. But yeah, we've seen costs really skyrocket, and especially over the past couple of weeks, costs have been really high to advertise in the US.
And we have one final one with. Sorry, just get it pop out of the way. With German cookie regulations, it has been really tough running meta campaigns. Are you seeing any particular trends in the way this geographical audience is leaning more towards? Any case studies that you can share on top line learning? So it seems that German cookie regulations are causing a few issues with meta.
Yes, so it's something that we have seen in a couple of different regions. The only fix that we have found, this is an easy fix, I'm afraid, is by using server-side tracking. So it's something that Jon and I have actually spoken about quite a lot, but it's a way to avoid those issues, put the data back into the campaigns. We spent a couple of years trying to find the fix for it, and I can definitely share more information around that after this. I could spend hours talking about it, but that's the only fix that we found. I'd love to say, just use TikTok instead, but sadly, it is quite a clunky one.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you've got a good solution for them for that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I can share that.
Okay, so no, that's been absolutely brilliant, Tom. We've got a couple more questions, but maybe we'll do a few more Q&A at the end. And let's just share my screen. And now we're coming on to SEO. One of the big things that Tom was chatting through was, and we spoke there about timings, and obviously there's a key window in which PPC is going to be working, and it's very focused, obviously, in terms of getting bums on seats. Whereas SEO is a slightly different beast. It's something that works all year round. It's for people who don't know about your event, who might be searching for topics or things that might relate to your event, but may not be specifically about it. So it really is a fantastic way of starting to drive people and getting signups to newsletters, building your database literally all year round, whilst everything else is not really happening. So it's an activity which traditionally, from my experience and speaking with many events organisers, it's something in which many events don't think about. They haven't necessarily budgeted for, because it's not the key activity which needs to happen today. It's a background piece, but we're certainly finding now is kind of one of the most exciting times that I've certainly had in SEO for a long time. We're now not talking about one platform anymore. We're not just talking about Google like we were in the past. We now have some new kids on the block with all of the AI platforms, where fundamentally, when someone is doing a search and it might relate to your event, it might relate to topics to your event, whether that be on Google, whether it be on ChatGPT, Perplexity, wherever they may be doing that search, what they're fundamentally looking for is good quality information. So it's an exciting time in many ways, but also it's adding a slight responsibility in that when you're now searching on various of these platforms, the platforms, you must remember, they have to get their information from somewhere. So you can take charge of this and take ownership and be that source of truth, and which that information will be from your website when people search about your event and the topics you cover and the type of speakers you have. The thing is, if the information isn't written on your website, and is certainly not written in a format in which these engines can read it easily, they'll go off and try and find the information somewhere else, which at best case could mean it's out of date information from old, other pages on the internet which have maybe last year's event or the year before. I'm not sure if you also heard the term in relation to the AI bots, but there's a term called hallucination, where if you go onto ChatGPT, it's inbuilt in which it wants to give you an answer. That's actually built in within its algorithm, so it wants to help you. So if it doesn't actually know anything about your event, it won't be unheard of that it will start making stuff up, and that's the last thing you want. It could be information which is completely wrong, it could misguide people, and that really doesn't do anyone any favors. At the moment, the number of searches on the AI platforms is still relatively low. We're only talking about 2.5% of overall searches at the moment, but this number is increasing dramatically. In last year alone, in 2024 to 2025, the amount of AI searches increased by 80%, and it's predicted that this kind of increase is going to carry on at pace, and hence the reason why you're seeing the AI snippets at the top of Google search. So AI is here to stay, and SEO in actual fact is a key part of that. I thought I'd bring into this a nice incorrect AI image on here, just to kind of show some of the the strange spellings that you get with AI, and to kind of prove that point that if you don't give it the source of truth, which can be your website, the information that you get out of it can be incorrect. So I think that's a key learning to take here. But one of the key things with SEO is the whole concept of year-round traffic. So in terms of where you're thinking to put your budget, obviously when you're leading up to the event, when you really want to drive registrations, and get sponsorship inquiries, etc., that is absolutely in the lead up to the event, and that is where you need to put budget, as Tom described, and starting with the kind of figures that he mentioned. But more and more now we're getting conversations with organisers who not only obviously want that piece, but they also want to have traffic all year round, so where you can start getting sign-ups to newsletter, starting to build email databases, which obviously decay over time. But with SEO, you can keep on building up those databases and people signing up to newsletters. We're also chatting with other clients now who are looking to monetize their websites year round through advertising actually on the website. And what better way to do that than to have 365 traffic, in which you have people coming to the site, clicking on the ads and being able to monetize those. We're also talking with clients about the concept of affiliate links as well, in which maybe exhibitors have products, and when links are clicked, income's earned from clicking on those too. These are all things that outside of the events world have been around for quite a while. Other industries in which SEO traffic is relatively normal. But I certainly see a shift in the sands, how many organisers are now starting to see the benefits of that year-round traffic, rather than just being that lead up to the event and then the big drop-off afterwards. So when it comes to SEO, it's very much about building an asset. It's very much building something relating to your website and relating to your event that just adds value whenever people turn up at any time of year. So in many ways it crosses your event cycle. What you're looking to do is to provide good quality information for any visitor at any time. And obviously the website itself needs to be updated to obviously reflect the time of year in which you're in. And certainly one of the mistakes that we see many organisers make is getting rid of content maybe when they think after the event's over. So one of the classics I always talk about is the registration page. Once the event's over, often that's taken down. So therefore, when someone types in your event and registration, there's no longer a page there to be served up in Google or one of the other engines. So that's a simple example. We certainly see other bigger examples where people take down information such as speakers. Now, for many events, especially those with large conferences, speakers and speaker pages are extraordinarily important, in which they can drive a lot of traffic to your website. So keeping that good quality content on the site can be a key way in which it's driving people to your website all year round. Often seeing the speakers is one of the main reasons why people might come to events in the first place. There is, when you're thinking about PPC, there was something that happened last year in terms, and there's increasing concern with people about privacy and the impact. So EU law has, as a result of that, Google brought in consent mode 2.0 last year, which fundamentally means that with the cookie bars that you see at the bottom of your website, there's less and less data in which some of the big platforms can gather about everyone. Now, obviously, you can still do highly effective PPC campaigns as Tom is doing, but it's slightly starved some of the big platforms when they have fewer cookies and fewer details about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis online. So the targeting does slightly get restricted. Now, this gap can very much be filled by SEO. If you imagine you have a website and the only keywords which are driving someone to that website are your event name, as a result of that, Google's only going to know from the SEO side the people who know your event already. So it's a relatively small range of people in which they can then model that audience when it comes to PPC. If you imagine, conversely, you have 1,000 blog posts all written by industry experts that talk about all of the different topics, etc., which your event covers, or maybe have products, or maybe have speakers, maybe have conference sessions. And so turning your website, rather than it just being an events website, turning it more over to being an actual resource which serves your industry, which starts to kind of give your audience the information they're looking for. The breadth of audience is a lot bigger, and therefore Google, when it comes to serving people up to your website and knowing what audience to deliver from a paid point of view, has a much larger canvas to go after. And as Tom mentioned, as a result of that, it can actually greatly improve the efficiency of your PPC campaigns and greatly reduce costs. So if you think about it, I mean, if currently you only have a certain budget that's available for marketing, would it be worth considering trying to get some SEO in place, make the website start to work a little bit more efficiently, get more information on there, and therefore then also maybe possibly save a bit of money on your PPC because your campaigns are a little bit better? So I've worked in many types of businesses. In the last kind of 4 or 5 years, I've worked predominantly in events, but beforehand worked on many other types of websites and many other types of businesses. And it was relatively normal in those industries to have a website in which, like I've mentioned before, is very much an online resource of information, which over time it grows and it gets stronger and gets more and more information on there about the particular business or industry in which that website may be in. Within events, I've seen something very different. So many websites seem to be treated a bit like the event, when at the end it's all taken down, a lot of the pages are got rid of. So when the whole thing starts again in the following year, you're kind of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, as I have seen on some occasions. Instead, you have such an amazing wealth of information. You're an event, you have conference sessions, you have speakers, you have exhibitors, you have sponsors, lots of people who want to present and give information. And this can be sought from all sorts of angles, but as a general rule, and especially in the world we live today with AI, in which it's much easier to convert information from one format into another, you have a wealth of information which could turn your event website into actually that resource that I've been talking about, and which you can drive people all year round. So one of the key pillars we talk about within SEO is that it's all very well to get information onto a website, but if it's really unstructured, it's not focused, it's a bit like going into a library in which you have no sections in which you're going to go and find the books. It doesn't become that useful to people, and it's certainly not helpful for Google or any of the AI engines to have a look around it. So we very much talk about content hubs, which in many ways are just like categories within that library I was speaking about. Or if you go into an online store, maybe it's a different product categories, sort of men's shoes, ladies' shoes, boys' shoes, that type of thing. Now, with your event, it's very much we'd be looking to split that up into similar types of content hubs, whether that be your conference streams, particular themes that you might have for the event, maybe it's particular industry sectors. So you want to start splitting your websites up into those kind of primary categories. And then behind those categories, that's where you start putting all of your key information, whether they be blog posts, whether they be particular products from exhibitors, whatever that content may be. If it started to be arranged behind these content hubs and these particular areas of particular subjects, Google and people will start to recognize that, and they'll start to see that you're an expert in these certain areas. So then when someone goes into Google and says, maybe asks a question about AI, it's possible that then the AI conference will come up. Or maybe when you go into ChatGPT and ask for some information, maybe it's pulling information from a blog post in which one of your speakers has written about, which is also on your website. Unfortunately, it all comes down to content. Google and the AI engines, literally all they do is come onto your website and they read content. The more you have, and if it's well organized, the much greater chance you have of driving people all year round and getting people to sign up to your newsletter, build your database, and really make your website that kind of year-round resource and monetize it fundamentally. So I kind of highlighted it, mentioned some of these things before, but what kind of content actually works? Well, I've listed some types down here. I think what I've missed out here is fundamentally that first step of understanding what your audience is actually interested in. So I spoke about topics before, but you need to understand what these are. And we can do that via keyword research. There's information available in terms of number of searches, etc. We're still grappling a little bit with kind of understanding kind of keywords for the AI engines, but at the moment it's we're still working that out, but there's still a small percentage. But fundamentally, you need to understand what topics and subjects people are interested in who want to come to your event. I've spoken about this many times before, but maybe someone's not interested in going to an AI event, for example, because it's a bit too broad. Maybe they're into machine learning, for example. So they might come on to your AI conference and find, and if that's not explicitly sort of presented, then that may not be of interest to them. But on the other hand, if you've broken it all down into your different categories, and they see you've got machine learning, they see lots of information about past sessions about that, possible speakers you have relating to that, suddenly your website becomes a lot more useful to them and also for Google as well. So step one is always to start to break that website down into these categories, but then in terms of the information that goes behind it, whatever this information is, it needs to be decent quality, and that type of info could vary depending on the type of event. So it all depends what you have, but is it good quality? Is it something that someone is actually going to want to read afterwards when they're sitting on the train, or when they're at home browsing the internet? Is it information that they're actually going to want to read? So it could be speaker interviews, but fine, were they good questions that were asked? Is it an interesting interview? Is there enough for people to actually get behind and get some useful information from? Now with Q&As, even if these interviews are on YouTube, it's now very easy to pull that out and get it transcribed and put on page, and we're certainly helping clients now efficiently do that, and getting these as kind of blog posts or kind of short posts up on their website. But interviews can certainly be excellent, especially if they're well-known speakers, and especially if it's if it's well written and punchy information. Very similar with session summaries. So if you have conference sessions, some of the stuff which, as I say, we've certainly been working with clients now on getting these conference sessions, whether they're audio, video, and getting them onto the website. And some of the stuff here is absolutely incredible. I mean, just on working on some of these, I've learned so much just converting these into blog posts, which are quite easy to read and to digest. But it's such incredible information. I mean, I've been working, like I say, I've been working on SEO for websites for many, many years. And some of this conference information which you get on and the blog posts are as good a written content as I've seen. I mean, for so many years, we'll be working with clients, and maybe they're an e-commerce store or local firm of solicitors or whatever they might be. And in reality, getting written content onto the website was always a bit of a struggle. And then when it actually came on to the site, it really wasn't that great and was generally quite expensive. Whereas some of the sessions that you have at your conferences and, let's say with interviews, etc., it's really amazing information, stuff which, maybe I'm not even in the industry in which you operate, but I find really interesting. So it's absolute gold, and you really shouldn't underestimate how powerful this can be. So you have it, get it recorded, get it transcribed, and get it up on your internet, get it up on your website, so the internet can see it, and the AI engines can start reading it, and Google as well. Thought leadership blogs, if you have people who are willing to do that. I understand sometimes that's a bit more of a challenge, but obviously it very much depends on your event and how willing people are. Sometimes people really want to submit blogs and show their knowledge, etc. Similar with white papers or downloadable guides. It all very much depends on you and your business and the relationships you have as to what type of content you might have available. But just a reminder that because of AI, it's so much easier nowadays to get that content from one format, whether it's written or whether it's audio or video, into another format, so it's written on a page, so it can get onto your website, and so Google and the AI engines can see it. As I mentioned before, it's not about gaming Google or the AI engines. Much of SEO, and which is just as true today with the new AI engines, is just about giving people really good quality information that they would genuinely want to read and gives them value. And if you do that, it helps your SEO, and it will certainly help with the AI engines too. So we kind of raised this point before, and I've certainly seen within events how I've kind of been surprised, if I'm honest, that often there isn't a line in the budget for SEO. But I think a few more organisers are now starting to realise that for that year-round traffic, and certainly helping with kind of boost the PPC and some of the advantages that Tom was talking about earlier, that it's suddenly something that might be worth bringing in, and especially in light of AI and making sure that you appear correctly in there. Hopefully it's something that a number of organisers are now starting to think about, because whilst, as Tom says, it doesn't necessarily have to be hugely expensive, it's still something which needs to be thought about and planned. Pages have to be created, content has to be put on in a way in which you're targeting specific keywords and behind certain topics. So it's certainly something that has to be done. It's an item of work, but it's not necessarily as expensive as you think. But it's certainly it's a long-term play, especially if you do it now. A lot of your competitors aren't doing it, so why not get ahead of the game? And it's a bit like laying a pipeline. Once it's there, the leads start coming through, and it's not therefore a campaign which you have to keep running. You'll start to have that nice trickle of leads. So it's not instead of PPC, absolutely not. SEO, very, as Tom mentioned earlier, it very much works alongside PPC, hopefully augmenting it and helping it. Very much with SEO, for it to work well, you have to have pages that look nice, that people engage with, that people read. So surely if you've created a website like that, it's going to help your PPC, it's going to help conversions. They'll go hand in hand. So it's very much about year-round performance. We kind of chatted through here that it's very much going away from the old model of just kind of spikes of traffic leading up to events, to a bit more of a continuous flow of traffic throughout the year. We briefly spoke about also the concept of the impact that Google's Consent Mode 2 has had, and potentially has slightly shrunk the amount of data and which is available to the advertising platforms, but SEO very much helps to kind of build that back out again. And how it can, as Tom also mentioned, how it can certainly make the paid campaigns work more efficiently. and give a much a much better ROI. Fantastic. That comes to the end of the SEO section. Let's just see if we have any more questions coming through. Let's have a look.
I had a quick question, John, just
Go for it.
Looking there. So obviously you mentioned around different use of AI and stuff. What would you say to someone that is thinking, oh, just create a load of blog content that's completely AI generated? What would be your advice to them?
Fantastic. It's interesting, this concept of AI, because there's AI and there's AI, and it's how it is used. So I like to think of it almost as another acronym, amplified intelligence. So if you put in a very, very basic command into AI, write me a blog post about AI, for example, it's probably not going to be very good. I often think of AI very much like a bit of a junior at work or an intern at work, in which if you don't give them very good instructions, what you get back is probably not going to be what you want, and probably quite generic. It is possible with AI to write extremely good articles, but on the other hand, you have to give extremely good instructions. So if I'm going to write an article about SEO, for example, I will use AI for a bit of help too, because I'm dyslexic and it helps streamline my workflow. But I need to know exactly the topic I'm writing about, the particular angle in which I'm going to be taking. I might use it to find a bit of research as to some recent data that there is around the topic. Maybe some other quotes that various people have brought in. So the query that I may put into ChatGPT when I'm writing that article may be the equivalent of 500 words or more. And from the back of that, you can potentially get a very good article, which is unique, which is well researched. But the thing is, so it depends, I guess, how you approach the concept of an AI written article. If you use it as a high level tool to create something in which you put a lot of input into, you can certainly get something great. If you want to go down the road of just saying, write me 50 blog posts about veterinary care, I pretty much guarantee you're going to have absolute garbage that comes out the other end, and your website will be penalized as a result of it. Google has an algorithm within its website, within its algorithm, which looks for AI generated content, or it's low quality AI generated content that doesn't add value to the user, and your website will get penalized, and the visibility of your website will be greatly hampered as a result of you doing that.
Brilliant answer, Jon. So ultimately, if you're looking to try and cheat Google, you'll get penalized. However, if you're looking to make good content even better with strategic use of AI, then that can help.
Well, I would say I see a lot of people who are scared of using AI, and there is the misnomer that if you using AI is like using any other tool, isn't it? It depends on how you use it, and if so long as you're always focusing on what comes out the other end is genuinely good quality, it genuinely isn't a problem. So I find people being scared of using AI stops people enjoying the potential benefits there are from it. So as an example, we have just done an AV to article, which is turning sessions into blog posts, which uses a bit of AI. There's a lot of high quality kind of instruction to make sure it's good quality output. But we've just done this for a large number of sessions for an event that does quite technical kind of power generation and etc. stuff, and they were very happy with the results. But this is AI generated. I mean, so it depends how you want to view AI. Sorry, you got me onto my little hobby horse there on AI, but thanks for the question.
I completely agree, Jon. I would often describe it as a bit like salt, using salt in cooking. So if you've got loads of really good quality ingredients and then you're adding the right amount of salt, it's amazing. Whereas if you make a dish that is just pure salt, then it's horrible.
We have a question. Earlier, you suggested that show organisers shouldn't take the registration form down straight after the show, but wouldn't it be a bad UX if we left reg link despite it now being finished? Amazing question. All I mean is keep the page so it says your event / register, or whatever your registration page is. And all you have to have is on here saying registration is now shut. It will now be open whenever, or whatever text you want to have up there. But you could have a sign up to your newsletter, for example, there. But the key thing is to have a page which is always there, which is your registration form. But yeah, change the content that's actually on the page that relates to what time of year you are within your cycle. But I certainly recommend keeping a registration page on your site all the time, because then when people type in your event registration, they go straight to your page. I think we've run out of time. Actually, we're 1 minute over. So thank you so much, Tom. I've really enjoyed doing with you this session, these 3 sessions, and look forward to doing some more soon. And thanks everyone for coming along and spending your time with us. Hopefully that was useful. We'll get the slides out to you after. There'll be a recording of this on our website, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.